Awaken your divine feminine energy. Reclaim your sacred power. Heal generational and inner child wounds. Embody the goddess within and magnetize your dream life. By Aurelia Voss. Introduction. In December 1945, a man named Muhammad Ali al-Salman was looking for fertilizer in the dirt near the base of a high cliff in Upper Egypt. It was a normal, dusty morning. The sun was starting to bake the ground. He wasn't looking for a miracle. He wasn't looking for a lost piece of history. He was just a farmer, trying to do his job. He swung his mattock into the earth, expecting more soil, but instead he hit something hard. It was a jar. It was made of red clay, about 2 feet high and sealed tight with a thick layer of wax. For a moment, Muhammad hesitated. He was afraid. There were old stories in his village about spirits, jinns, that lived inside ancient objects. He worried that if he broke the seal, he might let a curse out into the world. But he also thought about gold. What if the jar was full of coins? He raised his tool and smashed the clay. No gold poured out. No ghosts flew into the sky. Instead, he found 13 books bound in old dark leather. He took them home and dumped them on the floor near the stove. His mother even used some of the loose paper to start the fire for cooking that night. Muhammad didn't know it yet, but he had just ended a silence that lasted for 1600 years. Those books were the Nag Hammadi Library. They contained lost gospels and ancient poems that spoke of a different way of seeing the world. They spoke of a divine mother. They spoke of a feminine power that was wise, fierce, and essential. These texts had been buried in the 4th century because people in power wanted them gone. They wanted a world built on rules, hierarchy, and force. They wanted to bury the goddess so deep that we would forget she ever existed. But the earth does not keep secrets forever. Just like that jar in the Egyptian desert, something inside of you is waiting to be unearthed. The quiet hunger. You might be reading this because you feel like you are running a race that has no finish line. You wake up before the sun is fully out, and your heart is already beating fast. You check your phone before you even say hello to yourself. You have a to-do list that never gets shorter. You are successful. You are helpful. You are the one everyone counts on. But inside, there is a hollow feeling. It is a specific kind of tired that sleep cannot fix. It is the feeling of being numb. You go through the motions of your life like a robot. You eat, you work, you answer emails, you take care of others, and you go to bed. You are over-functioning. You are doing everything right, yet everything feels wrong. This is the wounded masculine state. It has nothing to do with being a man or a woman. It is an energy of constant doing, pushing, and forcing. We live in a world that rewards us for being machines. We are told that our value is tied to how much we produce. We are taught to ignore our bodies, push past our pain, and keep moving at all costs. You might feel like you have to be tough to survive. You might feel like if you stop moving, everything will fall apart. You might have leaky boundaries, where you say yes to everyone else while your own soul is screaming no. You are chasing your life, chasing the next promotion, the next relationship, or the next moment of peace, but it always stays just out of reach. The truth is, you weren't meant to live like a battery that is constantly being drained. You were meant to be a vessel. The promise of the return. The journey we are starting together is not about adding more tasks to your day. It is not about improving yourself so you can work even harder. It is about remembering. By the time you finish this book, you will no longer be the person who survives on coffee and hustle. You will become the embodied goddess. This sounds like a big word, but it simply means a woman who is at home in her own skin. You will learn how to lead with your intuition rather than just your logic. You will learn to set boundaries that feel like a protective shield rather than a wall of anger. You will discover how to heal the wounds you inherited from your mother and grandmother, the ones that told you that you weren't enough unless you were perfect. Most importantly, you will move from chasing to magnetizing. When you are in your divine feminine energy, you don't have to hunt for what you want. You become a field of energy that draws things toward you. You stop forcing doors open and start walking through the ones that swing wide because you showed up as your true self. This isn't just a nice idea. It is backed by the stories of women throughout history who refused to be silenced. It is backed by the science of how your nervous system works. And it is backed by the deep, ancient rhythms of the earth itself. Maya's glass cage. To understand how this looks in the real world, we have to look at Maya Vance. Maya is 34 years old. If you saw her walking down a street in Seattle, you would think she had it all figured out. She is a senior marketing manager at a top tech firm. She lives in a beautiful high-rise apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows. She drives a nice car. She wears the right clothes. But if you look closer, you see the cracks. Maya's life is sterile. Her apartment is gray and white, perfectly clean because she is never there. Her gym is a room full of machines where she punishes her body for 45 minutes every morning before work. Her relationships are a string of almosts. She dates men who are busy, distant, or simply not there when she needs them. She tells herself she is fine being single, but the truth is, she feels invisible even when she is in a crowded room. Lately, Maya has been experiencing what doctors call functional freeze. She can do her job. She can lead a meeting. But the moment she sits down at night, she can't move. She stares at the wall for hours. She feels a void in her chest that she tries to fill with wine or scrolling through her phone, but nothing works. One night, Maya was cleaning out a drawer and found an old journal from 10 years ago. Inside, she found a withered pressed flower. She couldn't even remember who gave it to her or why she kept it. But looking at that dry, fragile thing, she started to cry. She realized she hadn't truly breathed in years. She had built a life that looked like a success, but it felt like a cage. Maya is at a breaking point. She knows that if she keeps going this way, she will eventually burn out completely. She is ready for a change, but she has no idea where to start. She has spent her whole life using her brain to solve problems. She doesn't know how to use her heart. Maya is just like many of us. She is a good girl who did everything she was told, only to find out that the prize at the end wasn't happiness, it was exhaustion. The path ahead. This book is a map back to yourself. We are going to go on a journey that spans thousands of years and reaches deep into your own DNA. We will start by looking at the descent. Just like the ancient goddess Inanna, we have to go into the underworld of our own shadows to find our power. We will look at why our culture forgot the language of the soul and how we can start speaking it again. We will walk with Hypatia of Alexandria, a woman of incredible logic and spirit who showed us that a woman's mind is a sacred thing. We will learn from Artemisia Gentileschi, an artist who took the pain of her past and turned it into masterpieces of gold. And we will sit with Hildegard von Bingen, a mystic who taught that greenness and joy are the keys to a healthy life. Each chapter is a step toward your own awakening. We will cover healing the inner child, how to stop seeking approval and start giving it to yourself. The mother wound, how to break the cycles of not enoughness that have been passed down for generations. Magnetic boundaries, how to say no, so that your yes actually means something. The lunar pulse, how to live in a way that respects your natural cycles of rest and action. The art of surrender, how to let go of the how and trust that the life you want is already on its way to you. You are not broken. You are not too much, and you are certainly not enough. You are simply a vessel that has been cracked by the pressures of a world that doesn't know how to value you. It is time to fill those cracks with gold. It is time to stop digging for dirt and start finding the books that were written in your own heart. The jar has been broken. The seal is gone. The silence is over. Let's begin. Chapter 1: The Descent of Inanna. If you stand in the middle of southern Iraq today, all you will see is a lot of sand and dust. The sun is very hot. The wind blows through dry bushes. You might see a few pieces of broken clay on the ground. It looks like a place where nothing ever happened. It feels empty and quiet. But if you could step into a time machine and go back 4,000 years, your eyes would hurt from all the color. You would be standing in the city of Uruk. Back then, it was the most important city in the world. The walls were made of bright blue bricks that shone like the sky. There were gardens filled with date trees and cool water. People wore jewelry made of gold and blue stones. In the middle of it all lived a queen who was more than just a queen. Her name was Inanna. Inanna was the queen of heaven. She was the goddess of love, war, and the morning star. She had everything. She had power, she had beauty, and she had the love of her people. But one day she felt a pull from deep inside the earth. She heard a whisper from a place where the sun never shines. It was the voice of her sister, Ereshkigal, who ruled the underworld, the land of the dead. Most people spend their whole lives trying to stay away from the dark. We want to stay in the light where things are easy and we feel safe. But Inanna knew something we often forget. She knew that if you want to be truly whole, you cannot just live in the sun. You have to be brave enough to go down into the dark. You have to meet the parts of yourself that you have hidden away. This story is the oldest map for healing ever written. It is called The Descent of Inanna. It is not just a fairy tale. It is a guide for what happens when a woman decides to stop pretending she is okay and starts looking for her real power. Inanna got ready for her trip. She didn't go as a beggar. She dressed in her finest clothes. She put on her crown, her gold beads, and her royal robe. She put on her makeup and held her measuring rod made of blue stone. She was protected by her armor of being a queen. When she reached the first gate of the underworld, the guard stopped her. He told her she could enter, but there was a price. To pass through the gate, she had to take off her crown. Inanna was shocked. Why? She asked. The guard gave her an answer that we all need to hear when we start our own journey of healing. Quiet, Inanna. The ways of the underworld are perfect. You cannot argue with them. She took off her crown and walked through. At the second gate, she had to give up her gold beads. At the third, her necklace. At the fourth, the stones from her chest. At the fifth, her gold ring. At the sixth, her royal robe. Finally, at the seventh gate, she had to take off her last piece of clothing. By the time she reached her sister's throne, Inanna had nothing left. No crown to show she was a boss. No jewelry to show she was rich. No clothes to hide her body. She was just a woman, standing in the dark, completely bare. This is where the descent gets hard. In the story, her sister Ereshkigal looks at her with the eye of death. Inanna is killed, and her body is hung on a meat hook on the wall. She stays there for 3 days and 3 nights. It sounds scary, but think about your own life. Have you ever felt like you were hanging on a hook? Maybe you lost a job that you thought defined who you were. Maybe a relationship ended, and you felt like you didn't know who you were without that person. That feeling of being stuck, cold, and dead inside is what happens when our old life falls apart. But the story doesn't end on the hook. Up above, Inanna's friend was worried. She sent 2 small creatures down to the underworld to find the queen. These creatures were very small and quiet. When they found the sister, Ereshkigal, she was groaning in pain. She was hurting because she was lonely and carrying all the world's sadness. The little creatures didn't try to fix her. They didn't tell her to cheer up. They just sat with her. When she cried, "Oh my inside," they said, "Oh, you're inside." When she groaned, "Oh my outside," they said, "Oh, you're outside." They gave her something called empathy. They showed her that her pain was seen. Because they were kind to the dark sister, she let them take Inanna back to the world above. Inanna woke up. She stood up. But she wasn't the same queen who had walked down those 7 gates. She was stronger. She had seen the dark and survived it. She had met her shadow and brought it back into the light. The historical shadow, Hypatia's light. Centuries after the story of Inanna was carved into clay tablets, a real woman lived out a different kind of descent. Her name was Hypatia. She lived in a city called Alexandria in Egypt, around the year 400. Alexandria was a city of huge libraries and tall marble buildings. It was a place where people went to study the stars and math. Hypatia was the most famous teacher there. She was a master of logic. She could explain the way the planets moved better than anyone else. She was a leader in a world where men usually held all the power. But the world was changing. People were becoming more afraid of women who were smart and powerful. They wanted everyone to follow the same rules and stop asking questions. Hypatia represented the wise woman. She was the person who kept the light of knowledge burning. One day, a mob of angry men pulled her from her carriage. They took her to a building and killed her. They tried to wipe out everything she had taught. They wanted to bury the feminine way of seeing the world, a way that looked at the stars and the soul at the same time. When Hypatia died, it was like a gate slammed shut. For a long time, the wisdom of the divine feminine went into its own kind of underworld. It was hidden in old books and whispered in secret. Women were told that they shouldn't be too smart, too loud, or too powerful. We were told to stay in the solar world, the world of constant work, constant light, and constant doing. We forgot about the lunar pulse. The moon doesn't stay full all the time. It grows, it shines, and then it disappears into the dark for a few nights. That dark time is called the new moon. It is a time for rest and looking inward. But our modern world hates the dark. We have light bulbs that stay on all night. We have phones that beep at 2 a.m. We are told that if we aren't doing, we aren't valuable. We have been living in a world that is always full moon, and it is making us sick. We are burnt out because we have forgotten how to descend. Maya's heavy crown. In a glass office building in Seattle, Maya Vance sat at her desk. It was 8 p.m. on a Tuesday. The office was quiet, except for the hum of the air conditioner. Outside, the city lights were bright, but inside, Maya felt like she was fading away. She was 34 years old. She was a senior marketing manager. She had a nice car and a closet full of expensive shoes. On paper, she was winning. But as she stared at a spreadsheet full of numbers, her heart started to beat too fast. She felt like she couldn't get enough air into her lungs. Maya was wearing her crown. Her crown was her job title. It was the feeling that she had to be the smartest person in the room. She was the one who never missed a deadline. She was the good girl who never made a mistake. But that crown was getting very heavy. She looked at her phone. She had 10 missed calls from her mother. She didn't want to answer. Every time she talked to her mother, she felt like a little girl again, a girl who was never quite good enough. Her mother would ask about her job, but she never asked if Maya was happy. Maya felt like she was functional freeze. This is a state where you keep doing your work, you keep making dinner, and you keep smiling, but inside you feel like a block of ice. You are numb. You are hanging on the hook, just like Inanna. She opened her desk drawer and found an old notebook from college. Inside there was a dried flat flower she had picked years ago. Looking at it made her chest ache. She realized she couldn't remember the last time she had walked in a park without checking her email. She couldn't remember the last time she had felt electric or truly alive. Maya was at the first gate. Her soul was whispering to her, telling her it was time to go down. It was time to take off the crown of senior manager and find out who Maya really was underneath all the titles. The framework of the descent. To reclaim your power, you have to understand the map. Inanna's journey gives us a framework for how we heal. We can call this the descent map. It has 4 main parts. 1. The stripping of the armor in our world. We wear armor to stay safe. Our armor is our busy schedule. It is our I'm fine smile. It is the way we try to control everything. But you cannot heal while you are wearing armor. Healing requires being soft. Think about the gates Inanna passed through. Each piece of jewelry she gave up was a way she defined herself to the world. To start your awakening, you have to ask, who am I if I am not my job? Who am I if I am not a fixer for everyone else? This part feels like losing something, but it is actually about making space. 2. Facing the shadow. The shadow is the part of us we don't want people to see. It is our anger, our deep sadness, and our secret fears. In the story, this is Ereshkigal, the sister in the dark. Many people try to positive think their way out of pain. They say things like, just be happy, or it could be worse. But the divine feminine knows that you have to sit with the pain. You have to say, oh my inside, just like the creatures did. When you stop running from your shadow, it stops chasing you. 3. The stillness of the hook. This is the hardest part. It is the dark moon phase. It is the time when you don't have the answers yet. You have let go of your old life, but your new life hasn't started. In our culture, we call this a breakdown. But in the world of the divine feminine, we call it a breakthrough. This is the time to be very still. You are not doing anything. You are letting your soul grow back, just like a seed grows under the dirt in the winter. 4. The return with the gift. Inanna didn't stay in the underworld. She came back up. But she brought the wisdom of the dark with her. When you finish a cycle of healing, you don't just go back to your old life. You go back with better boundaries. You go back knowing that you are valuable even when you aren't working. You go back with eyes that see the truth. You are no longer just a queen of heaven, you are a queen of the whole self. The lunar pulse. Why rest is power. Most of us were taught that rest is something you do only after you have finished all your work. It is a reward for being productive. But the divine feminine sees rest as the source of power. Think about a wave in the ocean. The wave has a moment where it crashes onto the sand with a lot of force. That is the masculine energy, the action, the push, the doing. But before that wave can crash, it has to pull back into the deep ocean. That pulling back is the feminine energy. If the wave never pulled back, there would be no power for the crash. When you ignore your need to descend, to rest, to feel, to be quiet, you are like a wave trying to crash without ever pulling back. Eventually, you just become a flat, weak ripple. You lose your lunar pulse. The lunar pulse is the rhythm of your life. It tells you when to speak up and when to be quiet. It tells you when to start a new project and when to finish an old one. When you are in tune with this pulse, you don't have to hustle so hard. You start to move with the flow of life instead of fighting against it. Inanna's descent was her way of getting back in touch with that pulse. She had become too focused on her solar power, her crown and her throne. She needed to remember the lunar side of herself. Putting down the crown. You might feel like Maya. You might feel like you are carrying 1,000 pounds of shoulds on your shoulders. You might be terrified that if you stop for even a minute, everything will fall apart. But remember Inanna. She gave up everything, even her life, and she still came back stronger. The things you are afraid to let go of are often the very things that are keeping you small. Your power does not come from your title. It does not come from how many people like you on the internet. It does not come from how much you can get done in a day. Your power is sacred. It is something you were born with. It is the light inside you that was there before you ever learned how to be a good girl. It is the part of you that knows how to dream, how to feel, and how to create. To find that power again, you have to be willing to walk through the first gate. You have to be willing to say, I don't have to be perfect today. I just have to be me. The journey of the divine feminine is not about adding more to your to-do list. It is about taking things off. It is about unbecoming everything that isn't really you. It starts with one small step. It starts with one moment of being brave enough to look at your reflection and ask, what am I carrying that isn't mine? Your first step today. We often wait for a big moment to start healing, but real change happens in small, quiet ways. Today, you are going to practice the first gate. Identify one crown you are wearing right now. This is a title or a role that makes you feel pressured to be perfect. It might be the perfect mom, the hardest worker, or the one who has it all together. Write it down, on a piece of paper. Write, today for 10 minutes, I am putting down the crown of your role. Take it off, set a timer for 10 minutes. During this time, you are not allowed to perform that role. If you are a fixer, you cannot fix anything. If you are the hardest worker, you must sit still. Notice the feeling. How does it feel to not have that title for a few minutes? Do you feel itchy? Anxious? Relieved? Just watch the feeling. By doing this, you are telling your soul that you are ready to enter the first gate. You are telling the universe that you are more than just what you do. You are reclaiming your right to simply exist. Chapter 2: Why have we forgotten the language of the soul? From high above the rolling plains of southeastern Europe, 5,000 years ago, the world looks like a series of soft green circles. People live in clusters of round houses. There are no high walls. There are no deep moats. There are no watchtowers built to look for enemies. From this height, you can see people moving in a rhythm that matches the land. They plant seeds when the moon is right. They gather around fires to tell stories of a mother who gives life to everything: the trees, the rivers, and the humans who walk among them. This is a world where doing and being are the same thing. As the centuries pass, the view from above begins to change. The circles turn into hard straight lines. The houses get smaller and the walls get taller. Clouds of dust rise from the east as groups of men on horseback gallop across the grass. They carry long spears and heavy shields. They don't look at the moon for timing, they look at the sun for battle. The peaceful villages are replaced by fortresses. The stories change too. The mother is pushed into the background, and in her place, a father who rules with lightning and a sword takes the throne. Life stops being a circle and starts being a race to the top. One woman spent her life digging into the dirt to find these lost circles. Her name was Maria Gimbutas. While other scientists were looking for the bones of kings and the gold of conquerors, Maria looked for the art of the people. She found thousands of small clay figures. They were statues of women, often with wide hips and arms held out in a hug. They didn't have armor. They didn't have weapons. Maria realized that for thousands of years, humans lived in a way that didn't require hustle or force. They lived in a way that honored the soul. But as she looked at the layers of dirt above these statues, she saw the shift. She saw the warrior gods arrive. She saw the moment we began to forget the language of the soul and started learning the language of the machine. The myth of how it has always been. Most of us grow up believing a very specific lie. We are told that humans have always been competitive, violent, and obsessed with winning. We are taught that the strong survive and the weak are left behind. This belief is the foundation of our modern burnout. If we believe that life is a constant battle for resources and status, we can never truly rest. We feel like we have to keep running just to stay in the same place. This is the warrior myth. It tells us that our value is tied to what we conquer, whether that's a promotion at work, a bigger house, or a perfect body. It suggests that if we aren't producing something, we are failing. But Maria's work in old Europe proves that this hasn't always been the case. For a huge part of human history, we lived in partnership societies rather than dominant societies. In these older cultures, being creative, being kind, and being in tune with nature were the highest forms of power. The shift happened around 3500 BCE. A group of people called the Kurgans moved into Europe. They brought with them a new way of living. They worshipped the sky and the sun, things that are constant and bright. They moved away from the earth and the moon, things that change and have shadows. This was the birth of what we call the wounded masculine energy, not because men are bad, but because the world became obsessed with doing at the expense of being. We stopped listening to our bodies and started listening to the clock. The spreadsheet in the soul. Maya Vance sat in a chair that felt too soft for her body. She was in a therapist's office in downtown Seattle. Outside the window, the gray rain was washing over the glass buildings, but inside everything was beige and quiet. Maya didn't like quiet. Quiet felt like a space where a problem might grow if she didn't fill it with a task. "I just need a plan," Maya said, her voice sharp and fast. She was tapping her fingernails against the side of her leather bag. "I've been feeling really on edge lately.